mandates. Well, that in a way, following on my earlier remark, because we can't really operate completely in isolation. And therefore, I'm absolutely delighted that we have Edward King Onyenweaku from Lagos. And a huge country, the most important country in the African continent, certainly the largest, the most economically powerful. So he's going to be talking about the African privacy mandates. He's had over 12 years of consistent experience in the industry, which spans or cuts across different areas like cybersecurity, risk management, so on and so forth. So from Edward King Onyenweaku, we also will have Paula Andrea Baravina, who's the Managing Director of Compliance Board Group on the South American privacy mandates. And then in addition, we will have Prashant Gupta, who's been mentioned by Kirsty earlier. He's a partner in Ernst & Y in India, and he's going to give an update on the Indian Personal Data Protection Bill. So may I now hand over to Edward King Onyenweaku, who I think has got a presentation for us. Edward, are you there?
Hi. Hi, I hope you can hear me. Hi, Keshi, can you guys hear me?
Go ahead, Edward.
Okay, thanks, Keshi and team, for putting up this great event. I think this shows a clear direction on the importance of collaboration, and I want to say keep it up. Keep it up. In reality, when it comes to business, we can compete. But I believe when it comes to the issue of privacy and security, privacy, security, compliance, risk, the only option we have is collaboration. And this is what I see playing out in this event. So I want to say keep it up. So I will be speaking on the African protection regulation landscape, just to give us a feel of what is happening in Africa, where we are today, and followed by my recommendations or proposals to what I think Africa can do to get things right, and of course in the right direction. So just to kickstart, the next slide, please. So it is important to know that the privacy and data protection law or regulation is indeed a good thing for African well-being. And some of the reasons that you can see on the screen is the fact that if there is no effective enforced program when it comes to data privacy and protection, victims would definitely be deprived of appropriate remedy. And this is one of the significant importance why it is important to have a law that governs and regulates data privacy and protection. Secondly, the fact that an enacted and effective data privacy and protection law can actually mitigate unlawful surveillance, interception and monitoring of private communications like emails, SMS, phone calls of citizens. So if you have an effective law that governs data privacy, it will help to mitigate this. Number three is the fact that personal data, of course, is a new currency with which to effectively conduct business operation globally. Hence, privacy must be protected. So protecting or having an effective privacy and protection law will actually help to encourage business operation. Number four is the fact that governments, if there is no law or regulation that govern data privacy and protection, some governments will definitely take advantage of that gap to violate citizens' rights to privacy. And this is why it's important to have a good, functional, effective data privacy and protection regulation in Africa. And last but not the least is the fact that unlawful and unauthorized use of personal information of individuals. There will be high increase of cybercrime, identity theft, if there is no enacted and effective privacy and protection law. So at the end of the day, we come to see that indeed data privacy and protection is an important tool for African well-being. If you can move to the next slide, I try to give us an overview of the journey so far in Africa. Today in Europe, you have the GDPR, European GDPR, which has become a law. What is happening here in Africa is that out of 54 countries you have, over 26 have passed data protection law. Yes, of course, this is a good news for us, but it's a journey and we are not yet there. So the essence of this presentation is to propose what we need to do to ensure that we get things right done here in Africa. And a quick overview of some countries I've taken. If you look at the umbrella there, the umbrella body, which is the African Union, okay, you have what is called the CCPDP, which is a framework, a documentation that was passed in 2014 by the African Union. It is Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection. So this is a comprehensive document, but we are saying that this does not capture what we are looking at as a way of getting things properly done. For Nigeria, which is where I come from, as of last year, the data protection law was passed into law and it's called the NDPR. I will speak about that shortly. In Kenya, you have the Data Privacy Bill 2019. In Ghana, you have the Data Privacy Act 2012. And of course, in South Africa, you have what is called the PPI, Protection of Personal Information Act. And you can see there's a question mark to it, but I will explain that shortly. Can you move to the next slide, please? Some countries that have enacted comprehensive personal data protection legislation. This is not exhaustive. You have Angola, you have Benin, you have Gabon, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Mali, Morocco, Nigeria, Tunisia, and the likes of them. So these are some of the countries that have enacted comprehensive data protection legislation, and some are yet to do that. Next slide. Let's take a look at the umbrella body, which is the African Union. I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that in 2014, the African Union adopted the Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection. This is a good one, but we still have a lot to do. It is a comprehensive document covering electronic transactions, privacy, and cybersecurity. And the convention has been signed by about 14 states and ratified by 5 countries out of 55 member states. Laws on protection of personal data are increasingly being adopted at national plane. So we are saying that, yeah, the big umbrella has something to kickstart, and we are saying that there's need to take this journey to the next step. Taking a look at the next slides are some of a few countries. I mentioned Nigeria before. Nigeria happens to be the African continent's biggest economy as of today, and of course, the most populated country in Africa. Nigeria adopted its first data protection regulation in January 25th, last year, 2019. Public and private sectors have to conduct internal assessments. Many concepts of this regulation actually mirror the European Union GDPR. So what that means is Nigeria look at what European Union has done when it comes to data protection, okay, by the GDPR regulation, and they actually adopted some of the principles documented by GDPR, and this is a good one for Nigeria. The agency called NITDA is the agency in charge of monitoring of this law enforcement and, of course, supervisory compliance. This is what we have in Nigeria here, and so far so good. A lot of organizations have made progressive steps to complying to the NDPR regulation. The next slide talks about South Africa. South Africa today is the continent's second largest economy. They have what is called the PPI, which is Protection of Personal Information Act. This is not entirely in effect. As a matter of fact, this is an urgent item for the Parliament for full implementation. And just to mention the fact that as at 12th of May this year, the Parliament had to listen to a presentation from information regulators. So as I speak to you right now, South Africa has the PPI, but in terms of capturing the details and exact specifications when it comes to personal information protection, they are yet to pass that into law, and we are hoping that sooner or later, this will pass into law. The next slide speaks to Ghana. Ghana has what is called the Data Protection Act 2012. The act is legislation enacted by the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana to protect privacy and personal data of individuals. And this is also a good one for the Republic of Ghana. The next slide speaks to Kenya, and that is called the Kenya Data Protection Bill. Also, in 2019, November 8th, the President signed the Data Protection Bill, establishing requirements for the protection of personal data. These are good steps in the right direction in most of the African countries. And of course, this happened to be the first Kenyan data protection law, which means Kenya has come to realize the importance of having an effective and enacted data protection law for her citizens. And of course, this came into force in November 25th, 2019 also. Now, the next slide. African Union Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. I've put a question mark here. There has been block level adoption by different regional bodies and organizations, like I just mentioned. Okay, different organizations, different countries, okay, have adopted different regulations, and these are block level adoptions. And of course, this is a good effort and progressive step. But I'm saying the overall legislative framework is not yet harmonized. And this is what I am proposing that Africa needs to do to get things right. There is need to harmonize these different regulations as an African Union. If you move to the next slide, I'm saying that my prayer is that Africa should adopt a harmonized data protection framework. And I want to call this the African Union GDPR. The African Union GDPR. The next slide. What should it look like if Africa should adopt a union data protection law? What should it look like? Today, you know that the European GDPR replaced the directives. So why? Because the GDPR is an enforceable regulation within the EU member states, but the directive is not an enforceable law. I mentioned before that you have the European Union Convention, which is similar to the directive, and this is not enforceable. So my proposition is that African Union will take the next step by adopting what I call the African Union GDPR, which will become an enforceable framework, an enforceable regulation for the entire union and my proposition. The next slide talks about the benefits of harmonizing this framework. What is the benefit of a harmonized framework? I'm proposing that African Union should harmonize all the different framework that exist in block level And if this happens, what will be the benefit? Number one is that it will promote a better data hygiene and greater trust, because it will create an opportunity to encourage the development of the continent. And this is one of the big benefits we must look at in having a harmonized framework. Two is that it will promote transparent data transfer from other countries or continents to Africa. Three, it will prevent uncontrolled and unlawful collection of consumer data in Africa. For instance, today, the big silicon giants like Facebook, WhatsApp, Google, okay, they collect data from Africa, and there is no harmonized framework to govern what they do with this data. So having a harmonized framework will actually put some level of control to what these guys do with African data. And it will promote the use of African-based technologies, which is a good one for the continent. It will improve business reputation. It will guarantee more accurate data. And of course, it will contribute to the global security of data, which today happens to be a pandemic issue within the cyberspace. And these are the benefits. However, having said this, it is important to also know that in this journey of trying to harmonize African data protection laws, there are certain challenges that we must address, and these are the realities in doing this. I believe also that European Union GDPR had their own challenges before they could come to a conclusion. One of the challenges is lack of common currency for easy and better integration. Two is that Africa currently runs on block perspective rather than union perspective. Hence, enforcement might be a challenge. Number three is the further socioeconomic context, political setting, and legal culture in which such laws develop and operate might pose some bottlenecks. Lastly, as part of the challenges that must be envisaged, is the fact that existence of different personal data protection principles in relation to registration with a DPA, cross-border data transfer, data breach notification, appointment of DPO. So today you have different.
Edward.
Yes.
Edward, thank you very much. We also have two other speakers, and we only had to plan for half an hour. So thank you very much. We will come back to you on the panel. And with that, let us proceed to Paula.
Okay, thanks.
With your presentation. Thank you very much, Edward. But hang on, you will be on in a while.
Okay, thanks.